All right, so I'm about 26 kilometers outside of Santiago. Every time I pass, now going to Santiago, I keep seeing this little town right here. See those apartments right there coming up? And they got an interesting little construction company right there. I like how they built that, so it got me curious. But we gonna go through here and check out this little town right now. All right, so here we are. There's a little rental car company right here behind me. Somebody's house and rental car. I don't know why they placed it here, but hey, good luck to them on that one. And that was the entrance right here. To my left, this came down. And they got a little apartment right here. Apparently ain't doing so well. Got a Comada below or something, some kind of business, but it's not open. All right. What's up, people? RichesMethod, back at it again. All right, today's topic, man. This one I'm going to be a little bit more moderate on, believe it or not. I know typically my topics are might on one side or the other side sometimes, but everything in life doesn't call for that, right? So recently I've been thinking about the whole situation that I've been seeing about passport brothers and non-passport brothers and dating coaches and you know, the bring her back to the United States camp, or don't bring her back to the United States camp, or do you take her to your country or leave her in her country? Whether or not she'll become more of a modern Americanized woman with attitude and total independence or not. I'm going to look at it this way, man. If you're looking abroad for a girlfriend, if you're looking abroad for a relationship, and you're thinking, you know what, I'm far from retirement, or I don't want to live in another country or the country that woman is from, as to whether or not you should or should not take her to your country, or if you should keep her in her country, I'll say you really got to look at the negatives and positives of both situations and what you are individually looking for. Yep. Guess what, fellas? Not taking one side or the other this time. And there's a reason for that. First, I'm going to say I was an immigrant to the United States, right? So I got a different perspective on this based on that. What do I mean by that? I've got family members, I've got in-laws who are immigrants to the United States, and I've got some who've been there since they were 2 and 3 years old, right? So for all intents and purposes, my family members that have been there since they're 2 or 3, I may as well say they were born there, right? Because at 2 years old, you're not going to get the culture of the other country. You're just going to get the culture based on where you're living, and then also from the family members in your home, right? So I think we're all made up of nature and nurture, right? Question is, does society give us more of who we are, or does our genetics give us more of who we are? When you see someone's personality, I think they're mostly a combination of majority, the society that they're in, right? The socialization, the culture. So, when you like someone, whether they're from another country or your country, it's a makeup of the social surroundings and the family and friends and work and, you know, the culture. So, I've seen it where, for example, my parents went to the United States and they had to assimilate, right? So, for example, my mom or my auntie and my aunts and uncles who went to the United States, they're not going to be the same person that they were when they were back home as when they're in the United States. They got to survive, they got to work, they got to live, they got to adapt to the society that they're in order to flourish there, right? And then the rest of my family who are still back home in South America, took a spill, but I ain't fall. Only the bike got off in the right time. All right, we back in action. Saw that fall coming. I was using one hand, so I just hopped off the scooter before the scooter dropped. So everyone dropped with me. But the bike sung all right enough. Let's roll. They're got to survive in the society that they're in. They're going to have cultural ways, norms, and accepted behaviors for that culture to survive and to be looked at as a normal person. So for you fellas looking for love, man, I'll say this. how do you want to live, and why do you like that woman? In other words, what are you looking for? There's some people who have no problem dating within their own community. They just might feel like they didn't find a relationship there or love there, so they're looking abroad for several different reasons. And then there's the type who they're looking abroad because they feel like, okay, if I had a different culture, maybe more family values, more traditional values versus the modern Americanized lifestyle, I think I'm going to find it there. Now, the problem comes in here. If you're looking for that traditional, how it used to be, if you want to put it that way, versus the modern woman, as some people might call it, you got to think to yourself, if I bring this woman into my country, my culture, what is the negatives and the positives that'll come with that? Now, when you move abroad or when you visit abroad, there's little things about that other culture that you'll find to be maybe slower if you're from a supposed first world country, a developed country already, from a developing country, right? Those frustrations come with the way of thinking and the culture, the mentality. When you take that woman out of that environment, she's going to adapt to your environment, right? So some of that mentality that you might be frustrated about will go away. She'll learn your modern ways of acting. She'll learn your fast pace, the things that are stressing you out, that might make you look towards another country and another culture. She's going to become that way. You got to remember that, right? So she might lose some of those traditional developing country values that you might admire because she's got to survive in that new world, especially if you're going to be sending her to work in an environment where women, if they're the boss of the company or they're the management, they have to learn to be a little bit more aggressive to survive that environment, right? And to be successful at their jobs. So there goes that version of change, whether you like it or not. Now, if the woman is going to stay in her country, some of the same reversals will happen. If you go to that culture, you'll adapt. You have to, or else you're going to stand out too much. Unless you're just going to move into expat community and date exclusively within that expat community. I'm suggesting that most guys who live abroad, they don't want to do that, right? There's going to always be exceptions to the rules. All right, so this time let's explore from this angle all the way to this side. The apartment right there. This time we can go over this side, we can go through this road, and we'll roll around, come out on the left side. So let's go. Now, when you take that woman abroad, her age and how much she is, steeped in her culture and her traditional ways and beliefs and ways of doing things and thinking will kind of depend on her age. What I mean by this, if you were 50 and you're dating a woman from Colombia and she is 40, she's had a lot of years of working there, living there, becoming a certain type of woman in that society. It's going to be harder for her to change her spots as a leopard, right? However, if you're 50 and you go and you grab you a 25, 26-year-old who is now starting out in life, now starting to work, now starting a household, learning what it is to be a woman in a society where she is from, and you move her to Canada, the United States, the UK, wherever you might be, think about that. She's going to assimilate faster and easier and quicker into the new culture because her culture is not as deeply ingrained in her as yet. Now, both women, both examples, they're both going to get more Americanized and more westernized, right? Because they have to survive there. One might be delayed a little longer, one might keep more of her traditional values, etc. Neither one of those women are going to 100% become that new culture. I never 100% became American, right? Because my family members, my friends, the music I like, the culture that I like, in a diverse place like the United States where it's made up of many immigrants, I'm going to still find a lot of my culture in certain areas that I can still go to. And a lot of the other parts of me had to survive in America, from the accent, from the way I do things, from the way I think. And that evolved into the American culture, right? As part of who I am. So my argument is it's the same. And I'll say to any guy looking at it or any woman thinking about whether or not you should bring a love interest or a relationship interest to your country or whether you should leave them in their country, it'll depend on the lifestyle that you individually want. If you had no issues with a developed country mentality and you're just seeking someone who likes you and you like them, no problem. Go ahead and do it, man. 90-day fiance it out. Just make sure that that person is not using you for opportunities, right? You got to vet that relationship like any other relationship, because even in your country, someone could be using you for opportunities. What the type of opportunities they're using you for could be different, but hey, using is using if they're not truly into you for the right reasons, right? And then for the person who they're saying to themselves, you know what, I'm tired of where I am. I'm tired of dealing with certain mindsets from where I am, and I'm looking for something new, fresh. And, you know, I went on a vacation somewhere, and I took my passport and I used it and went to a few countries. And, man, every time I go to certain particular countries, I'm just attracted to the way, the mindset, the mentality of the women there. And you don't want that mindset to necessarily change. I would suggest, if that's better for you, you figure out a way to either live there or have a long-distance relationship where you're going back and forth. Keep in mind, if you do a long-distance relationship going back and forth, as time develops, a woman will want something more solid. She's going to want to know it's leading somewhere. I think anyone in life would want to make sure that that's the situation and that it's going to go somewhere other than you going back and forth eventually. So that'll make you eventually have to make a decision of whether or not she goes where you are or you go where she is, and then you got to plan accordingly. All right? That's just my 2 cents on it, man. I would say keep it moderate. But specifically, as with everything else I'll say in life when it comes to the matters of the heart, you got to deeply soul search and be very specific about what you particularly are looking for, because anything outside of that will just lead to problems, right? All right, guys. Subscribe, share, comment, and absolutely check out my ebook, How to Live and Slow Travel Abroad, for a lot of tips and, things that'll help you guys if you're looking at other countries, right? Peace out for now. See you on the next one.